I'm just in shock. That that was the biggest choke that I have ever seen from the Kings. Ever. And that includes that D'Angelo Russell game against the Nets. That includes last game against the Bucks. Just two straight games of throwing it away. But this one hurts way more than the Bucks game because in the Bucks one, you miss some free throws. Like, what are you gonna do? But in this one, I mean, if the Kings would have literally on every possession at the end in the last 4 minutes, they could have grabbed the ball and just stood there with it for 24 seconds and took the shot clock violation every time, they would have won the game. And that is just the biggest choke I've ever seen. And I think the reason it really sucks is because the Kings were playing so well in this game. So well to be able to get the lead that they did. And it's two straight games of them playing really well. It's about 7 quarters. It was 7 quarters in a row of really good basketball plus overtime. But it's just another case. I've been talking about it all season. The Kings don't know how to put games away. When they have the lead, they don't know how to put games away. The offense just totally flounders every single time we have a big lead. Every single time. And it finally came back to bite us because the Suns made enough shots because they have the guys to do that. And it's just about turning the ball over and not getting shots at the rim. Like I said, you could have taken the shot clock violation or you could have just chucked the ball at the rim. Just, it doesn't matter. Just someone has to take a shot. And it was turnover after turnover, guys hesitating, not taking shots. And the main guy that was at fault is Malik Monk, which sucks because he was also the guy that missed 2 free throws against the Bucks at the end there. So he's kind of at fault for 2 games in a row. And then the second guy is De'Aaron Fox. It's like it was the exact same scenario where like Malik Monk misses 2 free throws against the Bucks, and then Fox has the opportunity to kind of bail him out by making 2 free throws, but doesn't quite do it because he only makes 1 out of 2. It's the same scenario here. It's like, okay, Monk is absolutely throwing the game away. Just turnover after bad shot. But it's like, it's okay, right? Because we have De'Aaron Fox. So then it's like, okay, now we go to Fox. And it's just the same thing. He was turning the ball over, just horrible decision making. And that led to transition opportunities for the Suns. And our transition defense was horrible too. Even in the times where we got guys back in transition, we were not closing out to shooters at all. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. Just time after time. Like I don't know if I've ever been this sad about a Kings game. Seriously. And it's about how the last game ended against Milwaukee and feeling so positive about the game, even though it ended in such a heartbreaking fashion. And then coming into this one and the Kings again playing that way and playing so well and then just totally throwing it away. And the crazy part was it was about how long the Kings offensive drought went. Because this wasn't just, it was the last 2 minutes. Like, it was a long, long time to let the Suns back in. There were so many times where it's just like, okay, press the reset button. Somebody needs to make a play to stop this just crazy run from the Suns. Just somebody make a play. And no one could. Like, at 150, it was 115, 109. 115, 109. That was with about 2 minutes to go, or a little under 2 minutes to go, I think. Actually, that was with 1:30 to go. And that was where it was just like, okay, this has gone so south, but now you just put the ball into Fox's hand and you just let him take a shot every time. And that's not what the Kings did. Because that's the thing. The Kings totally went away from the offense that was working the entire time, which was the ball movement, the player movement. But then you expect that when it gets to the last 2 minutes, that's not normally the offense we even run anyways. So it's like, we just have to survive long enough. Like if you have a 6 point lead with a minute 30 to go, like at that point, or even with 2 minutes to go, like at that point, you should be able to reset enough. And they just weren't able to. And again, this has just been something I've talked about. The Kings don't have that stabilizer. The Kings did an amazing job of not turning the ball over for most of the game. And then I think they had 8 turnovers in the fourth. So they had 6 turnovers entering the fourth quarter. And yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say. That was it. Seriously, that was one of the most upsetting Kings games that I have ever watched. The Suns decided to go small in the fourth quarter and put Kevin Durant on Domantas Sabonis. And the Kings tried to take advantage by going to Sabonis in the post. And the Suns would come over and double. And then, Sabonis would kick it out. But nobody else was moving. Like Monk wasn't moving. And so they could just easily close back to him. And then he didn't swing the ball to take advantage of the rotations. There were so many times where the Suns were in rotation and guys would be wide open. And the ball would just stick and somebody would make just a horrible decision and turn it over. Just the biggest meltdown I have ever seen. Because our half-court defense throughout most of the game was pretty good. Like we were playing pretty good defense. We held them to 27 points in the first quarter, 24 in the second, and then they got 33 in the third. But we didn't even give our half-court defense an opportunity to win us this game. Like I said, we could have just not scored in the final 6 minutes. We still should have won this game. And it's just crazy how different a team can look from the first 42 minutes of a game and then just completely flip and throw an amazing 42 minutes, totally throw it away within 6 minutes. I said coming into this road trip, a 3-2 road trip would be solid. And the Kings went 2-3. And really should have gone 4-1. Obviously, just throwing 2 straight games away. But at least they should have gone 3-2. But I guess looking at the bright side, it can't get any worse than this, right? Like, this is so bad. Like, after all those blowout losses, I was constantly saying, why can't the Kings just keep it close? Like, at least have close losses. But not like this. Not throwing away a 22-point lead with 8 minutes to go. Like, oh my God. It's like not only were we turning the ball over, but then we're tied. And then Sabonis gets a loose ball foul to put Kevin Durant on the line with like 20, however many seconds to go. It was just blunder after blunder after blunder. I mean, the real bright side about this game is it feels like the Kings are back from last season. Like the offense, it looked really good. Kevin Huerter has looked really good these past 2 games. It feels like for the most part we have our rotation figured out. And for the most part, this is a pretty fluky loss. Like against the Bucks, I mean, free throw shooting, even though we're, one of the worst the worst free throw shooting team in the league, it's pretty fluky for Malik Monk to miss 2 straight free throws. Our best free throw shooter to miss 2 straight free throws. And then this one, it's pretty fluky to turn the ball over every single possession or get blocked and then blow a 22-point lead in 8 minutes. And so this loss, you can't pin it on the normal things that people point to. I feel like when addressing what's wrong with the Kings roster makeup in terms of like defense, size, wing defense, like the Suns have great players on the wing, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, like in their guards and their wings, and the Kings were able to keep them in check. And so the problem is, I mean, first of all, this should just never happen to any team. But if you really want to look at like what could have prevented this, it is a third player that can handle the ball and create outside of Fox and Monk. Someone that you can go to when those 2 guys cannot seem to make a correct decision. Because as bad as this loss was, there are still so many positives to take away from it. Just like the Bucks game. Like the first 40 minutes of this game, is more representative of this Kings team than that last 8 minutes. It's more representative of what we will normally see than, again, that just fluky, horrible choke at the end. The Kings still need to be much better at putting teams away, but it's not like I never felt like there was an opportunity to extend this lead to 25, 30-point lead. Like, it always felt like the Suns would make a run and then the Kings would do a good job of responding, and they did everything they needed to do for most of the game. And if they can keep playing like how they played in Milwaukee and how they played for the first part of this game, like, there's going to be a lot of wins in the future. And so it's hard to look at now after what we just witnessed, but they're starting to look like a very good team and less like a team that's going to get blown out by 30 points every other night. And so let's just talk about the rest of the game. From the start, the Kings looked pretty active defensively. It looked like they were giving a lot of effort, getting their hands in the passing lanes, but it definitely wasn't the best start in terms of results. Like, the Suns were still being able to score, and it's just really tough to guard all the guys that they have. Grayson Allen throughout this entire game couldn't miss. He ended up going 9 for 14 from 3. But the Kings just kept getting after it. They forced a lot of turnovers, and this was the best, I think, that I've ever seen Kevin Huerter play defense. He was staying in front of his man. He was guarding Kevin Durant and giving good contests. He was guarding Booker and getting good contests off. He was staying in front of Beal. He was getting in the passing lanes, getting two steals. He got a block. He got some rough foul calls, so he ended with 4 fouls. And that's why his minutes are why he only played 26 minutes. And he just looked really confident out there. He was making good decisions with the ball, and he was playmaking well. I think he got the first score of the game, going right to the rim, and then he was playmaking for others, looked confident shooting the 3. And so that right there is probably the biggest reason for why the Kings offense looks like it did last season. Just him being back to normal finally these last 2 games after just such a long spell of being absolutely horrible. The Kings were just getting whatever they wanted offensively, getting to the rim, getting wide open threes, and that was just the case for, again, 40 minutes of this game, just getting pretty much whatever they wanted, especially in that first quarter. Like, they scored 39 points in the first quarter and scored 68 points in the first half. But I didn't think there was any crazy shooting that was going on from anybody, any crazy overachieving in terms of, 3-point shooting. I think the only guy that was shooting better than you would expect was Sasha Vezenkov, and we know he can shoot extremely well. And he went 2 for 3 from 3, also made a long 2. And so he was the only guy where I felt like, wow, he's really hot. The rest was just, wide open threes, making them at a solid percentage. Barnes 2 for 6, Huerter 2 for 6, Keegan 3 for 5, Sabonis made 1. Even Lyles was missing. I think he missed like 2 wide open threes. And so it wasn't because the Kings were just on fire from 3. It was good offense creating great looks both inside the paint and from the 3-point line. And the story of the first half was the assist to turnover ratio, which also happened to be, for the opposite reason, the story of the fourth quarter. But at the end of the first quarter, they had 15 assists to 1 turnover. At the end of the half, 23 assists to 3 turnovers. The ball was just moving around so beautifully, fizzing around. The ball movement, player movement was incredible. Sasha with 14 points, 6 for 9 from the field. And his movement is great, constantly moving. He's constantly getting right under the rim, right to the dunker spot, and getting easy layups or easy little floaters, especially when Malik Monk was running the pick and roll. And the Kings went to the Malik Monk pick and roll a lot in this game. And the only time it didn't work was, again, the fourth quarter. But he was dominating out of the pick and roll for most of the game. He had 8 assists, 13 points, wasn't shooting super well. But the Kings continued to use a tighter rotation off the bench. Instead of an 8-man, they did go to a 9-man. So, after Keegan went out in the first half, or after the first half in Milwaukee, Sasha Vezenkov came in, gave good minutes. And so Mike Brown rewarded him, and Sasha got to play pretty early in this one and be part of the rotation, even with Keegan still playing in this one. And he played super well. And we're not playing another guard off the bench other than Monk anymore, which, I mean, that's probably for the best, because no one has earned that spot. Davion has been horrible. Duarte has not earned that spot. Keon Ellis, everyone loves him, and I do too, but he is just a second-year player, and he didn't necessarily earn that spot. He just overachieved from his two-way contract. And so I think this 9-man rotation is probably what we're going to see going forward. Sabonis with another triple-double, 21 points, 11 assists, 12 rebounds on super efficient shooting. And he was finishing really well inside. And he was finishing with his right hand. It must be nice to, have two operational thumbs now for him. And he really has been finishing with his right a lot more. So he's getting more comfortable with that after breaking his right thumb last season. Of course, the Kings can't shoot well from the free throw line, 7 of 12. So, that's fun. It didn't even seem like Keegan or Fox were shooting that well while I was watching, because they both missed shots that I would expect them to make, especially from the mid-range. Both of them were getting pretty open looks off the dribble, and they weren't knocking them down. But then I look at the numbers, and it's like Keegan 7 for 12, 3 for 5 from 3, Fox 12 for 24, 6 for 10 from 3. So they were shooting well. It was just they were missing open looks, but they were getting so many open looks that they were still shooting efficiently. And so that's the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, I already talked about Herder's great defense, but there were a lot of guys that played really well defensively. Fox took a charge on Booker. Yeah, Booker tried to post him, took a charge, and there were multiple other possessions of him kind of locking up both Booker or Beal, and his one mistake defensively was fouling Durant on that final Suns possession when he had a good contest and he just went into him for no reason, and it's just another dumb mistake at the end. I don't get it. The Kings they didn't make one good decision in the last 8 minutes. How's that even possible? There was one defensive possession in the third quarter where Herder locked up Durant, stayed in front of him, forced him to pass, and he passed it to Booker, and then Fox locked up Booker on the same exact possession. And so that was a really fun possession. Keegan Murray also played great defense on Booker, and the Kings just did a really good job for the most part on Durant, Beal, and Booker in the half court. And they made other guys beat him, and Grayson Allen did a good job of that. But, you look at the Suns' numbers, and I would love to look at their numbers just taking away all of the transition opportunities, because I think Durant's numbers would be way worse if you take away transition, and so would Eric Gordon's, and just specifically transition in the last 8 minutes of the game, because I think if you take that away, the Kings did a great job in the half court, which is not necessarily something you usually expect from the Kings, but they were able to do a really good job. And so it's just about bad offense turning into offense for the Suns. Trey Lyles also had to guard Durant for a bit, and there were a lot of possessions where Lyles would get really good contests off on Durant's shots. And I think the Kings just looked like the more energetic team for most of the game defensively, and they were playing with so much pace, and the Suns just could not keep up on either end of the court. There's that one play where Keegan tried to poster Durant and got to the free throw line, and that was really fun. And the Kings did a really good job of responding to every single Suns push, obviously except for the last one. Like there was a moment in the third where Booker started getting to the free throw line, and he was starting to feel it a bit, and he got it within 14, and the Kings responded by getting out in transition and scoring that way. And Herder had a great move where he caught it in the corner and pump faked, went baseline and made a nice little floater. And the end of the third quarter wasn't great. Like the rebounding wasn't great in the third quarter, and that allowed the Suns to get up to that 33-point mark for the quarter, which was more than the quarters before that. And the Kings went a little cold, and there was a moment where in transition with like, a minute left about, where Fox gets the ball and then just for some reason passes it to Vezenkov running up the middle of the floor, and then Sasha turns it over. And that play really frustrated me because I could see it coming from the second Fox got the ball, and that's very much a turnover on Fox, not Sasha, because the Kings' transition offense is horrible this season. They get so many opportunities and they don't convert. And Fox, if he would just look to go up the court himself, like don't pass the ball to Sasha Vezenkov to bring it up the floor, especially in the middle of the floor. Do it yourself. Like don't rely on non-ball handlers to bring the ball up the floor. But he doesn't use his speed in transition very much. And it's one of the reasons the Kings' transition offense sucks. I was looking at a graph about like transition opportunities and then the points off of them. And the Kings get a lot of transition opportunities and they do not score a lot off of them. But at the start of the fourth quarter, the Kings had a great response to that, poor end to the third quarter. And Bradley Beal was really off, but the Kings took advantage. Fox made a really nice pass to Vezenkov under the rim. Monk had that crazy block into the three. Lyles played some great defense, forcing a turnover on Durant and then forcing some tough shots. Fox hit a deep three. And then, there were a couple of bad offensive possessions, especially by Monk, that had the lead get cut from 22 to 16. And so, that was the start of it. But it felt like the Kings were responding again when Herter got a stop on Booker, and then Fox went in, missed a shot, but got his own rebound and kicked it out to Keegan for the three. And so that made the Kings go up 18 with about 6 minutes to go. And it felt like that was the dagger. And of course we know it wasn't. But just for those, I would say 42 minutes because I know the screenshot of with about 8 minutes to go is the one going around, but that 18-point lead at about the 6-minute mark, that's when it completely fell apart. And it's just really disappointing because, Malik Monk made that tweet where he's like, my bad, Zach, he's going to make up for it, right? And it seemed like he was for most of this game, and then he just kept throwing the ball away. And, that was just so hard to watch. It's just, for about 3 quarters or actually about 3.5 quarters of the game, we facilitate everything through Sabonis. And when that was happening, things were going really well. And even Len, when he was out there, was making good decisions with the basketball, I thought. But then we turn it over to the guards for the final half a quarter of the game. And this was just one of the moments where both of our guards totally let us down. There were also 4 illegal screens called on the Kings, or at least 3, and then another just off the ball offensive foul on Monk. But, it was pretty much 4 illegal screens called on the Kings in the fourth quarter. 2 were on Alex Len. Like I said, 1 was on Monk, 1 was on Barnes. And then there were just some mind-boggling turnovers where it's just like, if you continue to turn the ball over time after time and they're constantly scoring, you would think you would do everything in your power to not turn the ball over on the next possession. You'd be like, okay, let's just calm things down and just get a shot. Just get a shot. It doesn't even have to be a good shot. Let's just run pick and roll and just shoot the ball. But no, like Fox gets to the baseline and tries to whip a pass along the baseline and turns it over. And then Barnes with that illegal screen. And it's just like, how could you think that was a good idea? Just shoot the ball. There were so many times where guys just passed up shots. I don't know if they were just trying to like run clock or what, but passing up good shots to either turn the ball over, get blocked, or just take a horrible shot but usually it was a turnover or a block, which those were the killer ones because they led straight to Suns buckets, and most of the time they were threes in transition by Eric Gordon or Kevin Durant. I mean, just one of the most insane games I've ever seen. I'm still in shock that that just happened. Our next game is against the Pacers, and then after that we get a bit of a break. We get 3 days off between the Pacers game and the Hawks game. So, like I said, we ended this road trip 2-3, go back home for 2, and then go on a big road trip. It's a 7-game road trip, longest of the season, and that's starts in Golden State, then Dallas, Memphis, Miami, Indiana, Chicago, Cleveland. Not the toughest teams necessarily on the road trip. Not the easiest teams either. But just the 7-game road trip is always tough. So that's why we need to take care of business on this homestand. We threw 2 games away. 2 games straight away that we should have won. And so we got to get these next 2 just for my mental health. Please get these next 2 wins, because Indiana without Halliburton, maybe they'll make a Pascal Siakam trade and they'll be without, even more players. Who knows? But Indiana without Halliburton, you got to win that. And Atlanta at home, you got to win that one as well. I'll only accept 2-0 on this homestand. After what they just put us Kings fans through on these last 2 games, I will only accept a 2-0 road trip. Homestand. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roller Report. I will sadly be back to recap that game against Indiana. Sometimes I hate doing this. Actually, this is the only time I've hated doing this. Just, oh my God. But I will see you guys after that game against Indiana. Peace.